Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Janney, and I'm here to talk to you today about an artist, and we're going to do a project based on his book that he has here. Some of you might know Eric Carle. He's pretty famous. He's also done lots of other books, but the one that we're going to read in class is called Mr. Seahorse. And here's the book that we're going to be using in class. You can probably borrow this from the library if you don't have it at home. So in this book, we learn how lots of different sea animals take care of their young or their babies. Isn't that cool? Look how bright and colorful that is. Did you know that Mr. Eric Carle is an illustrator? Here's his picture. You know what an illustrator is? An illustrator is someone who makes the pictures for the books that we read. It's pretty cool, huh? And what he does is he paints the paper. He gets out giant sheets of paper and paints them in all these fancy colors that he likes, whatever he feels like. And then after it dries, he takes those pieces of paper and he cuts them out and creates the shapes that he needs to create for his illustrations, to make the pictures for the story. But he's got another job too, did you know that? He's also an author. He also writes the story that goes with his pictures. That's pretty awesome. He does both. Lots of books will have a different author and a different illustrator, but he can do both. So I like this book. That's why I'm going to share it with you in class today. And then our art project is all about creating a seahorse for us to hang out in the hall. It's going to look really cute. And I used a paper plate to make my seahorse. So it started out with a plain paper plate, and I drew the shape that I needed for the seahorse. Now, if you're doing one at home, you can probably find a template online and trace out. You'll just have to search for one on Google in images. You can find lots of free templates. So then you draw that on there, cut it out so it looks like this one. Or if you don't have a paper plate, you can use just a plain sheet of paper and draw the same shape or template out on that. So that's what I've done. I've got an extra one here on a sheet of paper. And the first thing you're going to do is start to color some designs on your seahorse. So here's mine. And I'm using crayon. It's best because we're going to do two different techniques on this. You can use crayon, or if you have access to oil pastels, you can use oil pastels. But since most of us bring our crayons to class with us, we're going to use crayons right now. I need to add an eye for my seahorse. And I'm going to add the line for where his mouth separates there. And I want to add, the features for his face. I'm going to use another color. Use lots of different colors. I'm going to add some things here. Okay, and you can color any design you want. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Color it any way you want to, but don't fill the whole thing in because we're also going to add some paint to this. All right, so I'm going to add some other little details in here. So we're going to do what we call a watercolor resist. Now, because crayons have wax in them, it's going to resist or push away the watercolor. And it works great with oil pastel too, because the oil does the same thing. The watercolor paint is not going to stick to it. So I've got my watercolors. Okay. I've got my brush. Got my cup of water. Now, first I'm going to decide what color I want to use first. I'm going to dip my brush in the paint, into the water. And because these are dry watercolor palettes, you have to add water to the color first. So add the water. My favorite color is purple, so I'm going to do purple. I'm going to put my wet brush into the purple and stir it around, get that paint loose. Okay. Dab it against the edge because you don't want to be dripping. And now paint your seahorse. And you can paint right over the designs that you did. And it won't cover up the pretty drawing you did. It'll push that paint away from it and only stick to the paper. That's pretty cool, huh? It's a great little magic trick. Now, in between colors, you always want to make sure you put your brush in the water, stir it around, clean that brush before you dip into another color. We don't want to dirty up our watercolors because other students later on next week will probably be using them. So here's one that I finished and cut out. After it's dry, you'll cut it out. And these are nice to hang up, and they make great decorations in the hallway here at school, or you can hang them up in your room at home to remind you of all the great work that Mr. Eric Carl does. Now, you could also read other books by Mr. Eric Carl. You can find them online. You can find them at your library. You can find them at a bookstore. They're a whole lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Happy art making.